Hey, what up, guys? Welcome back to Think Shank, where we tackle questions about sports that aren't raised nor explored enough as far as we can tell. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok now at ThinkShank, and you can email us at thethinkshank@gmail.com. I'm Skyler Reinhardt, your personal NBA junkie, philosopher, and tour guide, and today we are doing it for clout. I know it's been a minute. March Madness has been crazy. I don't know how many of you guys have been following along, but honestly, this Burns guy on NC State, I have absolutely no idea where he came from. I just know he's from South Carolina, and he looks like a cinder block with arms, and I just can't stop watching him move and do stuff on the court. And Caitlin Clark, obviously, is also just terrifying. I don't know if I've seen that much of a cheat code in a single game. She trounced LSU virtually by herself. I mean, it was extremely entertaining, don't get me wrong, but that was rough. I just don't even know what you're supposed to do or what the pros are going to do. Super crazy time of year. There it is. With March, like I said, everything is coming to a head here. So today I want to do a quick check-in on the standings. I'm going to just call it the standings scrum. I just want to go team by team, quickly call out some of the recent changes I think are important. Item B, I want to talk about Knicks OKC game that happened 2 nights ago. There's a huge uproar about the lack of a foul call, and had some things to say on Twitter and got some funny responses about it. So I just want to double click on that pretty quickly. C, the Dallas domination, exactly as I called it. Dallas's defense has mysteriously done a glorious 180, playing the right chess pieces in the right places. Jason Kidd looked like his head was on the chopping block and ready to go right after the All-Star break resumed. I think they went 5-6 or something like that. Oh my God, he finally played the lineup that I could have told you he should have been playing since before the All-Star break. So better late than never. A lot of momentum going into it. I love this Dallas team, and I will explain why. And then last but not least, I have a fun little philosophical lens that I want to put on specifically the Western Conference as we think about how things are not only going to finish, but what takeaways and implications we can have from the rat race that was and is the Western Conference, why there's so much talent there, and while we're going to think about it on the other side. Just interesting to think about. Without further ado, let's think Shank. All right, starting in the Western Conference, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder back on the throne, their righteous place, under Mark Dagnall, the second youngest team in the NBA, leading the Western Conference yet again. This comes after their MVP candidate, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, of course. He missed 3 games consecutively starting a week ago. The big thing I want to call out there is Jalen Williams, or J-Dub, or Santa Clara Jalen Williams. He is phenomenal, and he is in a very weird place. He is somehow almost over-lauded, but so underrated, it's appalling. And I just want to give my own comp for it. Like I said, SGA went out for 3 games in a row, and they played the Knicks in Madison Square Garden. They won. Of course, SGA hit that huge kind of game winner, but Jalen Williams kind of carried them, and it was really inspiring. The best way I would describe, both from a defensive and offensive standpoint, is he's like a younger but somehow more polished version of Jaylen Brown. Very similar build. Jalen Williams is definitely longer. I would say already more defensively versatile than Jaylen Brown is, because of that length, and I think, again, because of that instinct. Not a huge knock on Jaylen Brown. Definitely most effective at a point of attack. He can get out of focus or unfocused or whatever off ball. That's where Jalen Williams kind of wreaks the most havoc, almost. Him and SGA are kind of similar. I'm sure that's Jalen has picked up quite a bit playing alongside of SGA, but jumping into those passing lanes with, again, I don't know what his wingspan is, but you just see him kind of even just walk around and like sit on the bench. I don't know, man. His wingspan is nuts. So when it comes to getting his hands on passes, closing out to the perimeter, I don't know. Looks really good. But even on the offensive end as well, he can completely self-initiate, I would say almost as smoothly and easily as Jaylen Brown. I think there's definitely years, plural, worth of experience when it comes to coming into his physical frame, putting on some of that muscle and, doing some of the mental calculations as far as getting the shoulder into a guy and really taking it to him. But then there's the juice part where even in that Knicks game, there's just one incredible sequence where Jalen Williams stuffed, I want to say Josh Hart, might have been Brunson. I can't actually remember exactly who it was, but I don't think he was the primary guy. It was kind of a chase something, but stuffed him so hard, he retained possession of the ball after blocking it, took it coast to coast, and then Statue of Liberty dunked on the Knicks in Madison Square Garden, and then screamed. And I love that. Jaylen Brown is also known to, he definitely likes to, he'll talk. He'll say some stuff. Jaylen will actually yell. Him and Daniel Gafford got to be neck and neck for two of the loudest guys that'll let you know after they do some stuff like that. I would also say Jalen Williams, funny enough, is probably already a better outside shooter, although the volume thing is what it is. I think I looked this up. Jalen Williams is literally like 43 or something % from three, which is kind of insane. And again, the number of attempts and frequencies are definitely different. Jalen takes way more attempts, but you heard it here first. There could be a chance that Jalen Williams is a better version of Jaylen Brown than Jaylen Brown next year. So that's just my take. We'll see what happens. Next, you have Denver. Smooth sailing, nothing to report there other than Jamal Murray. Please get healthy. I know they're really being careful with the end of the regular season and making sure you're healthy for the playoffs. I can't watch any more Reggie Jackson on the court. It hurts my eyes. Sorry, I defended Reggie Jackson a lot in the past, I assure you, but oh my God, is it clear that Jokic and the rest of the Denver team does not trust that guy with the ball? And I think they're right. So thank God Michael Malone is notorious for riding his starters heavy minutes. So if more rest time for Jamal now means he can make it happen come playoff time, that would be what I'm banking on because, man, I do not want to see Reggie Jackson play more than 20 minutes a game. 3, you have Minnesota. Denver, again, is a half game behind OKC. Minnesota's the game back. Smooth sailing, no update on Cat. That's all we know for now. Next is the Clippers. They are 6-4 in their last 10. They are on a 3-game win streak after a horrendous stretch where their own coach, Ty Lue, might have heard of him, literally called them soft in a post-game interview when they got blown up to the Jazz or something, and it was absolutely awful, and I have some thoughts on that, so I won't double-click yet. Next, you have Dallas. I'm also going to talk about them, so I'm going to skip them for now. Then you have New Orleans. They are in 6th place. They're only a half game behind Dallas, 1 spot ahead of them in 5th place, so 5 and 6 are only a half game difference. Big thing I want to call out for New Orleans is the Brandon Ingram injury. I don't know bodies and doctor things, but Brandon Ingram is kind of a skeleton, I guess pun intended, with their weird voodoo thing they got going on. But I'm not trying to speculate on the dude's underlying conditions on stuff. I just don't like the way that injury looked. Go ahead and look it up if you want on Twitter. His leg went into the ground and his body kept going. Exactly how it sounds is what happened. And he's got long. Jalen Williams is long. Brandon Ingram is longer. So I don't know. I hope that dude is good. He's been out for, gosh, it must be at least 5-6 games right now. Granted, that's one of the strengths of the Pels is just their optionality and depth of talent, at least on the offensive end. But they're going to need him not only on the court, but producing at a high level on the court. So hopefully he's good. If he is, I think that's going to go really, really far, especially for his mid-range game when you think about potential matchup against Minnesota, where you are not going to get to the rim and you are not going to take many threes. So QBI. Next, you have Phoenix. So Phoenix is in 7th. They are a game behind the Pelicans in 6th. Really weird team. I have thoughts on them. I will get to them later, actually. So skipping them for now. 8th is another, oh my God, breaks my heart. 8th, you have the Sacramento Kings. They are a half game behind the Phoenix Suns. They are sliding into the abyss right now. Maybe the most unifying moment of the season is the collective moan of the NBA community at the news that Malik Monk bruised his MCL. Bruised? I think it was bruised. God, I love watching that dude play basketball. He kind of just hovers around and does like leprechaun shit and somehow can dunk over people, but he looks like he's my height. I don't know. He's got some, like, the rules of the video game. His gravity is at like 80% or something. The guy just flies around. I love watching him play. And Kevin Huerter. Kevin Huerter is going to undergo season-ending injury on his shoulder. He had it dislocated in a game a few games back. Malik Monk is probably their third most important player, and Kevin Huerter is probably their 5th or 6th. And they're both done. Well, Huerter's completely done for the rest of the season. Malik is not going to be done until the second round of playoffs, if they make it there. So, I don't know, man. I mean, the Kings right now in 8th place, so, you're playing the Suns, the one game of the play-in, the upper bracket. You lose that, then you got to play the winner of the Lakers Golden State Warriors. I'll tell you what, them versus the Warriors in round 2 would be electric, considering they went to a 7-game series last year, and they're kind of the same team. One doesn't have the greatest shooter of all time, but the one that does, just barely a team, and their second best player might get arrested. God bless Sabonis' sternum. Hopefully that makes it, if that were to happen. Next is the Lakers at 9th. They are only a game and a half behind Sacramento. They are 7-3 in their last 10. Had a huge double overtime win against Milwaukee without LeBron. That was very inspiring. Austin Reeves, he's still him. So we'll see. 10th, you have the Golden State Warriors. They are a game and a half behind the Lakers. They're all over the place. Draymond got ejected. I'll talk about them more. Yeah, I don't know what to make of them, but they have won their last 4 in a row. So in honorable mentions, you have your Houston Rockets, who are 9-1 in their last 10 games. 2 games behind Golden State for the 10th seed. Before yesterday, the Warriors had just a game on the Rockets, and it better be real intense over there for the Warriors, because if they don't even make the play-in this year, woo! And then you think about how many games everybody's favorite clown, convict, soon-to-be convict, felon, Draymond Green, how many games he missed this season. He's going to have some questions to answer about that. What are the takeaways? Well, number 1, you can't scheme for how these teams are going to wash out, particularly if you are in 5 through 10, 5 through 11, basically. Denver could finish first, they could finish second, or they could finish third. It is literally that up in the air, and in a weird way, it's kind of all in Jokic's hands. Like, if he decides to take his foot off the gas a little bit, that could literally be the difference between Kevin Durant making it to the second round of the playoffs and the legacy of the big 3 of the Brooklyn Nets of the West, and how you rate their that literally could be the difference in Kevin Durant's legacy, is if Jokic decides to get after it a little bit for this Final Four game to watch Edie and DJ Burns play each other. Like, if he just gets hammered on Friday and decides not to play on Saturday, like, that literally could be the difference between Booker, Beal, and KD's legacy in about 10 years. So, funny things. Then I want to quickly go over to the Eastern Conference now. Okay, so number 1, everybody jokes about the Eastern Conference. It is the Boston Celtics Invitational. I can't believe that this is how the league is right now as far as the strength of teams in similar positions. I think if I were Chicago or Atlanta, I would respectfully resign. Honorable discharge, like the Samurais that they just end it all. Just don't even compete. This is embarrassing. Like, think about it this way. Memphis was a G League team this year, and they broke the record for the number of individual guys who have clocked minutes for their team in one season. I think it was like 31 guys, because they've had that many injuries, right? What about next year? Who isn't going to finish in the top 10? Literally, what are the top 1 through 12 seeds going to be in the Western Conference, assuming Memphis is healthy? I don't know, man. Every time I look at the standings between the two conferences, it kind of pisses me off. Like, I really like Sacramento, I really like Houston. I really like Memphis too, man, when they were healthy. Like, I'm sorry. The Sixers, the Bulls, and the Hawks just don't deserve to play in the postseason. Like, they just don't. All right, ultra quickly. Boston Celtics running away with it. Milwaukee Bucks, 11 and a half games behind the Boston Celtics. Number one, Giannis decided to start setting screens for Dame. And on one hand, hooray. On the other hand, I just don't understand why on earth it took so long to just start doing these reps here. And also, you lost in double overtime to the Lakers without LeBron James. Middleton takes bad shots. He's a really good player. Do not get it twisted. When they won the chip, my God. That dude and Andrew Wiggins and Jordan, there are just guys, I don't know what it is, that they just, conscious blackouts where they're just superhuman. In a moment of pure adrenaline, like a mother picks up a car to save a baby, or that just happens, right? I'm really glad, for the sake of, if nothing else, Giannis's psyche, that he's alongside of his longtime brethren, Chris Middleton. Obviously, Drew Holiday is not only not on the team anymore, but there's a good chance they're going to be playing against him in the conference finals or whatever it is. But Middleton clearly still has that chemistry with Giannis when it comes to lobs and tendencies and things like that. Dame coming over, they're trying their best to build that or whatever, getting to the playoff. But like I'm saying, you just started doing the stuff that we were expecting all season. I don't know. And then you look at especially that double overtime game against the Lakers. Man, Middleton takes some bad shots. And that's not great. So hopefully they can reel that in. All right, next, Cavs. So they are on a 1-game losing streak, and they got blown out by 29 points to Denver without Jamal Murray. And Donovan Mitchell was absolutely furious in the locker room afterwards. I reposted it on my Twitter. I highly recommend you take a look at it. Cavs Twitter is not feeling great about their chances of holding on to Mitchell after the season, and in all complete honesty, I have no idea why he'd want to stay there unless the Cavs front office finally realized that the redundancy of talent and strengths that they have on this roster is not synergistic. You literally have a ball-dominant Darius Garland with a primarily ball-dominant guard in Donovan Mitchell. They can both play off the ball, but again, it's about maximizing the talents that you have. The highest ceiling you will get from Donovan Mitchell is very similar to what they had on Utah, right? Solid rim threat, lob threat, going downhill, surrounded with shooters. Utah's biggest flaw, as we all know, especially Rudy Gobert, they had absolutely no perimeter defense whatsoever. It was worse than the Dallas Mavericks back then, but then somehow Royce O'Neal has a reputation as a good defender. I don't know why that is, by the way. The Cavs have really actually very, very, very solid perimeter defense, and very similar story with Atlanta. I'm telling you right now, guys, Orlando's going to get Darius Garland, or Trae Young, or San Antonio is going to get Darius Garland. I don't know. But if I was the Cavs front office, I would be looking at those clips of Donnie after that insane blowout and not feeling super great. If they were smart, they would do something about that. On to the Knicks. Latest news we have is that OG Anunoby is going to return before Julius Randle even comes back. Nobody has any idea what happened to Julius Randle and his dislocated shoulder. It is increasingly looking like he will not return for the season. which blows. I'm not going to lie. They don't stand a chance at beating Boston anyway, so I know Knicks fans won't like to hear this. Maybe not the worst outcome is you make sure your second and third best players are fully healthy. If you haven't seen the video of OG Anunoby screaming on the court, what is it, like the third game he came back after his elbow surgery recovery, that he like clearly re-aggravated the elbow and he screamed on the court. Yeah, not good. Do not want that to happen again. That being said, even with OG back, they're just going to be tough, dude. Not to mention playing the Knicks in Madison Square Garden in the playoffs. I think Trae Young's been the only person who's actually come out of that place kind of really dominating it. Dante DiVincenzo might be the best shooter in the league right now, and it blows my mind to watch him. And same thing with Isaiah Hartenstein. Something with Isaiah, Dante, Brunson, and Hart. Not trying to single out McBride. I know that's mostly their entire starting unit at this point. But those guys just have great chemistry and vibes to them. And again, Dante DiVincenzo is probably the biggest observation for me. That boy can shoot. I mean, his shot's always been really pretty and, like, nice. I mean, my guy's not even touching rim right now. So if you want to see some really sick shot making, check out DiVincenzo. Oh, and he just broke the record for the most number of threes for a Knicks player in a season. We got 10 games left still, so great. Fifth, Orlando, same thing. They are basically the Minnesota of the East, kind of. Insane defense. Jonathan Isaac is probably the best defensive player on the planet when he plays, but they can't, for health reasons, have him on the floor for more than like 20, 25 minutes at a time. Similar vein as DiVincenzo is if you want to just see a black hole with legs, just defend every single position on the court. It doesn't matter. Check out Jonathan Isaac. He's also not that young. I had to like double click into his backstory really quick, but man, that dude has had some weird injury. I mean, he was hung up for like 2 straight years. So I don't know exactly what the nature of that was, but oh my God, getting to see that guy play is really dope. Franz is not taking the step forward that I'd really hoped. We'll see what happens to close out the season, but Franz doesn't seem good. Kind of similar with Halliburton maybe, with the injury coming back or whatever. Not that Franz is up for All-NBA, but I don't know. Something doesn't smell right. Speaking of Halliburton, Pacers are 6th. They are on a 2-game win streak. They are 6-4 in their last 10. Halliburton just had a 27-point, some insane number of assists and 0 turnover game last night. I really hope he can turn on the burners as we close out the regular season. We'll see if that happens. But you know, they're kind of just doing Pacer stuff. No other updates there. Number 7, we have Miami. They're a game behind the Pacers in 6th. So Jimmy Butler plays basketball once again. Everybody's favorite time of year. March is just a crazy month of the year. They are still dealing with their health issues, and nobody knows who is actually going to get any minutes come the playoffs, but that is nothing new. If Miami scores 100 points on you, you're probably going to lose. So there it is. 8th is Philadelphia. So here is the only real bit of news update for you guys. As of 2 days ago, news broke from Woj that Joel Embiid is going to be making his return. He's expected to at least this week. People were saying as soon as today, Tuesday, April 2nd, they're playing Oklahoma City. Tyrese Maxey is listed as questionable. Again, we have 10 games left. He is known to be an underwhelming playoff performer to begin with. He is also coming off of this MCL injury, not tear injury. So for a million, billion, gazillion, gigatrillion reasons, they are not going to even let him risk an iota of re-injury, as well as keep him shackled with a minutes restriction. So anyway, I just say that to say, I literally do not expect to see Joel Embiid play high-level basketball until the play-in. And I think you should be under the same mindset. He's not going to play highly intense competitive games to risk aggravating his injury, and his ego also will not allow him to play good teams without his second best player. The odds are not in Philadelphia's favor to begin with, in his ability to literally last a single playoff series, let alone an entire playoff run. Just saw a tweet just now that he wasn't at shoot-around this morning ahead of the game against Oklahoma City Thunder. So very doubtful he will be playing today. I'm sure they are probably playing a worse team later this week. So expect to see him probably play against the Portland Trail Blazers or somebody and drop like 20 points in a quarter and then sit down and never come back in. 9th place is Chicago, and then 10th place is Atlanta. Chicago, I have no idea. I cannot watch them. I apologize. Kobe White, take most improved. I don't even know who else is in contention. If Tyrese Maxey wins it, I'm going to burn down my apartment building. I don't know. Everybody knew Tyrese is already good. That makes no sense that he gets most improved. Granted, I don't know what the actual statistical analytical jump is, but that's just lame. I mean, it might be technically fair, but that's just lame, in my opinion. I also don't know how Kobe White's been playing recently, so whatever. The Bulls frustrate me. I never want to watch them play basketball. They are super underwhelming. Literally, the only reason I would watch them play is if the game is within 5 points with 5 minutes to go, and DeMar DeRozan is not hurt or fouled out yet. So I would literally just watch them to watch DeMar DeRozan single-handedly beat another team. Otherwise, that is a waste of time. And then somehow, I just still don't understand how the Atlanta Hawks are worse in the standings than the Chicago Bulls. I like the Hawks, man. And I'm going to just say it. I like the Hawks a lot more with just DeJounte Murray than I do Trae Young. And yes, that's called recency bias because they just beat the Boston Celtics twice in 1 week, 2 days apart. And I will be double-clicking that later on, so I will try not to give any spoilers away. But let's just put it this way. Man, DeJounte Murray, that dude just wants to play. Man, I know he took exactly 100,000 shots in that second game, but oh my God, man, that was some of the most inspiring basketball I have seen, not only from him, but that is the most life I have seen from the Hawks all season. Bogdanovich hadn't hit a three until literally 20, 30 seconds left in the fourth quarter to tie the game, to send it to overtime. Of course, Jalen Johnson doesn't play basketball either, which is unfortunate, and they still beat the world-beating Celtics. To be fair, they haven't needed to have a pulse in about 6 months because they've just ran away with seeding. But, hey, gonna happen. So look out for Trae Young potentially coming to a stadium near you very soon. That is all. The Eastern Conference is completely irrelevant. All I care about is Miami, Milwaukee, and Boston. Let me throw in the Cavs there. Let me just put it to you guys this way. Without inundating you with on-off differential data and analytics or whatever, I mentioned the redundancy between Garland and Mobley, Donovan Mitchell, Jared Allen, very, very similar. Their offensive and defensive potencies for both of those separated lineups are literally better than when they're all together. To the layperson even, that might just make sense. And I'm here to tell you, you're not wrong. There's no reason to have all these dudes play at the same time. You have more than enough weapons, the Niangs, the Dwayne Wades, the Merrills even. Oh, Max Strus, of course. Huge Max Strus guy over here. Oh, my God, dude. Just stagger the lineups and send Garland to San Antonio and help out Wemby. I don't know. It makes no sense, dude. It really doesn't. That is it for the standing scrum. I'm sorry it took super long. Oh, God. All right. The second bit I want to cover quickly, very quickly, is a segment I am titling Knicks: Lovers or Haters of Physicality? ? So, if you were not aware, somehow, the Oklahoma City Thunder played the New York Knicks in Madison Square Garden 2 nights ago. That is the what, okay? Second last play of the game, Jalen Brunson goes for a drive, makes the layup, does not get the and one. SGA comes back down, ices the game on a turnaround baseline fadeaway jumper that would have forced overtime had Brunson have been given that and one and then hit the shot. Of course, he's really good at free throw shooting, so whatever. Knicks fans were irate that Brunson was not given the and one call on said layup from Lou Dort, who came over to provide help defense, and Chet was behind him. The 2-minute report, the official 2-minute report that the NBA officials put out for certain games said the contact from Dort was, quote, incidental. Two things. It is very reductive to boil the entire outcome of this game on that one call. I know this is obvious. Even within the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, there were two specific plays that I thought the Knicks got the benefit of the whistle from that ultimately led to the point where at the point of Brunson making the layup, they were up by one, okay? I don't know how much time was left, but that was to win the game, okay? Josh Hart crowded Jay Will as he was out of bounds, all but basically pushing him out of bounds, which has been called a foul in the past. Again, officiating rule changes. They're allowing more incidental contact. It's basically playoff basketball right now. Did not get that call. Ended up being a turnover on Oklahoma City. I thought that was questionable to begin with. There was another play I couldn't remember at the time, and I didn't have time to look it up before. But, it was like Niang. I can't remember. I don't know. It was another annoying fan base, I think, where, Niang was up on somebody, and then I can't remember who that team was, but everybody, fans for that team were freaking out, like, how did you not call that foul on Niang? He, crowded him out of bounds, whatever. Someone, hopefully, somewhere, randomly, will know what I'm talking about. But basically, that hasn't been called before. So I guess precedent had already been set. But in addition, there was a missed shot from Oklahoma City where Josh Giddey basically delivers even less incidental contact than Lou Dort did to Brunson going up for a rebound. Excuse me. Actually, let me rephrase that. He didn't even go up for the rebound. He literally had his hands in the air, ended up gave up on trying to get the rebound. Dante DiVincenzo was in the air, got the rebound, and Giddey's path took him into DiVincenzo and gave him a little hip-to-hip thing that, in my opinion, was, again, less contact than this Lou Dort incidental contact that the refs doubled down on it, not even being a foul call, called it a foul on Josh Giddey, and then gave the Knicks 2 free throws to get him even closer back in the game to Oklahoma City. I thought that was very, very soft. In my opinion, you also, again, had that play with Jay Will and Josh Hart, whatever. Knicks fans are also crying about the handsiness, whatever. Dante DiVincenzo was called for a foul trying to guard SGA, had his hands in the cookie jar. They were basically doing a one-on-one near the logo at the top of the key, whatever. So point number one is, it's not just about the calls that didn't go your way. I have not heard or read a single Knicks fan acknowledge any point where they were the beneficiaries of the whistles themselves in the last 5 minutes. I just gave you 2 examples right there. Have not heard a single thing about that. Secondly, and this is the overall most important take, ready? Tibbs' defense has always been about physicality, wearing teams down, getting into people, etc., etc. Why am I bringing that up? You cannot be as physical of a team as the Knicks are and not be able to take it from another team that is also playing you physically, all right? You cannot whine when the whistle doesn't go your way, turn a blind eye to the level of physicality that you yourself have been playing, and not acknowledge any benefit resulting from the same exact whistle. My point was, again, with the Twitter stuff is, I can understand why this exact last play is infuriating. Frankly, if it was called a foul, I would understand it. It's not like the Warriors, where the Warriors fans, I feel like, for show almost, are like, Steph never gets fouled, Steph never gets the whistles, blah, blah. Steph's a shooter, okay? Brunson actually goes to the cup and, like, gets in amongst the trees and, actually kind of pivots and like, embraces the contact. Curry, obviously, one of the best finishers in the league at the cup, but he is not working, whatever the annoying announcer says. He's not wheeling and dealing like Brunson is at the cup, trying to get it up there. Steph is a lot of like speed and angles, and you know what I mean? Like he's not actually getting in there and like making things happen. It's a different kind of game and play style. And I'm sorry, I have to say this. And Windhorse got crucified for it yesterday for bringing it up. And oh my God, I have to say, very surprised that a daytime host /hack /talking head on ESPN would take the shot at, one of the league's darlings. Brunson's a notorious flopper. I don't know how else to say it. And I say that acknowledging that it's not his fault. Like, right? I feel like normal people and anybody looking at the league, if you were looking at Brunson's stature and it makes sense. You look at Dame Lillard play, like he's throwing his fucking body all over the place, trying to get calls, and you understand why. You are disadvantaged. Look at the replay of the video and look out for two things. One, Jalen Brunson snaps his own head back before any contact even occurs. Okay? Two, look at the way his body even falls afterwards. It is without a doubt embellished, at minimum. Particularly the part with his head snapping back before there's any contact to begin with. I just really don't think that is getting enough press. Guys, I understand the train is super fun to get in on. Brunson never gets any calls, yada, yada, yada. We've been through this with Steph Curry. We've been through this with Trae Young. We've been through this with Dame Lillard, and we're going to get a lot more of it now that he's on a contender. He's embellishing these calls, guys. And again, this is where the technicalities, right? Well, but it's still technically, I don't know, man. I don't know anymore. If we're doing the incidental contact stuff with this kind of stuff, you might just have to deal with this. Okay? You might just have to deal with it. And I'm sorry that your beloved shadow dark horse MVP candidate, he's got to sack up and take it, man. I'm sorry you guys are really upset about that, but that's how I feel, okay? One, you guys benefited from the whistle as well. Two, you're a physical team anyway, so you need to learn to sack up. And three, Brunson flops. I'm not saying that shouldn't, I can see that basically being a 50-50 call. But you have to acknowledge all three of those. You have to. I don't understand what else there is to say, all right? If you can't get all three of those, what are we even talking about? All right, next, I want to talk about Dallas's dominance. I feel super vindicated. I called this right after the very first game that Dallas played post the trade deadline acquisition with PJ and Gafford. Incidentally, I spent 2.5 years living in DC, so I had a weird kind of connection and portal into watching Gafford play, and I knew that this was going to happen, specifically with the defense, which I'll get into, but it must be so riveting as a Dallas Mavericks fan, whether longtime one or new, even if you were a PJ Washington fan or, God forbid, a Daniel Gafford fan back in Washington, but the Mavericks are clicking and all cylinders are firing, and I'm not going to lie, guys. They might be the biggest threat to Denver in the Western Conference. And I know they played each other, a few weeks ago now, with maybe the greatest game winner I've ever seen in my entire life from Kyrie Irving. But if you haven't watched them play recently, I would do it. And let me explain why. Over the past 2 weeks, they are 6-0. They have been first in the NBA in net differential, points scored versus points scored against. Their offensive rating has been 9th in the league, and their defensive rating has been 3rd. I'm going to say that again. The Dallas Mavericks have had the third best defense in the NBA for a 2-week span. Might sound kind of facetious, but that is a huge deal. Also, they got the tiebreaker with Sacramento after back-to-back wins. They had the weird baseball. Like, this is exactly why I think that this really matters. So listen, you get Luka Doncic and you get Kyrie Irving, assuming they're both healthy. There was never a doubt for a second the offense was going to be an issue, almost irrespective of whoever else was going to be on the floor. The fatal flaw has always been defense, and that has never wavered. And that is why, my friends, you go out and you get a stretch power forward like PJ Washington, as well as Daniel Gafford. So you have now Luka, Kyrie, Derek Jones Jr., PJ Washington, and Daniel Gafford. This is the lineup that I have been pitching since that first blowout win against Oklahoma City mid-February or whatever it was. I don't know who sent Jason Kidd the link to my breakdown, but thank Christ you finally did this. The Dante Exum experience, the roller coaster of that has been great. The dude should never be on the court for more than 20 minutes a game or else his legs will light on fire. And now we have, I'm not kidding, what could very well end up being the best net differential lineup in the NBA, aside from Boston, because they just have too many minutes, and they've all just known exactly what they've been doing since day -10 of this season, and they have had to do literally nothing but sit around and just pummel teams trying to figure their own shit out. All right, finally have the most possessions played of any lineup for the Dallas Mavericks. That is 265 possessions worth. In terms of net differential, they are at the 89th percentile compared to all other lineups that have played at least 100 minutes. They are plus 23 points per possession. They are scoring 118.5 points per possession, puts them at the 51st percentile, so middle of the pack on offense. But, oh my goodness, do you see it on the defensive end? The points per possession on defense is 95.5 points per possession, 97th percentile. And man, that is the exact outcome that I had hoped to see. Daniel Gafford, he is unbelievable on both ends of the court. And if you have happened to stumble onto any Dallas games, I'm not even going to bother with the stats on this guy, but he is a black hole of a rebound cookie monster. He is also fantastic at help side defense, whether that's blocking, deterring shots, etc. He's an absolute animal out there. I'm serious. And then, most notably to me, something that I didn't even really realize back at his time in Washington, which granted, I don't know about the point guard approach. He might have taken the throne from Steven Adams to me in terms of the best screen setter in the NBA. This guy is 6'11", but could not be more of a almost perfectly sculpted, proportioned athlete where he's not insanely long or disproportionate or slow or whatever. And on top of that, he's absurdly accustomed and in tune with his own body. Like, it's like if you just scaled up Russell Westbrook a little bit. I mean, obviously the proportional, like, whatever. But you understand, Russ is hyper athletic, right? Knows his body control, all those things. That's like Daniel Gafford. So when you talk about strong screens being set, Gafford is really good at making himself wide. Again, proportional body, good frame, is already pretty wide, gets his stance very wide, does not move, very strong, very legal screens. But back to the athleticism part, he can afford to do that because he's so fast. He's able to literally stand and make himself even wider and jolt down to the basket and roll right in there and still lob all over everybody and scream in their faces. So I just love that aspect of his game on the offensive end. Again, on defense, it's like barely even worth talking about, man. That dude can get way up. His reaction time, similar with the athleticism, is fantastic. I love his game. Lively is in a very similar boat. I mean, he's a little bit obviously longer, but the issue with Lively that you will absolutely see in the playoffs, which is why I originally said I wouldn't be surprised if Gafford ends up starting. Lively cannot get into foul trouble, and there is a good possibility that ends up happening, especially in the young kid's first playoff run. So just an incredible story. It just makes me so happy to see it. And exactly what I was saying before as well about I'll touch on the Luka MVP stuff in a second, but like the part about the MVP case that I was talking about in mid-February was the defensive end for Luka Doncic. When he has the trust of his back line to actually stand a chance at blocking shots, not to mention the perimeter defense, their best on-ball defender is Derrick Jones Jr. If he's starting at the 3, you've got a elite perimeter defender in Jones Jr. You have a very switchable, also positive defender in PJ Washington, assuming, he gets into their defensive system or whatever. He definitely needed kind of a incubation, integration period, but I still firmly believe that he will be a positive defensively for this team. Not to mention, of course, ultimately you have Gafford or Lively holding everything still near the rim. So Luka seeing that, understanding that, recognizing that, has him buying in more on the defensive end as well. I know I was talking about this earlier with his steals and his deflections and his whatever. He's in better shape. He's bought in again because it matters. And he's really cerebral at the sport. So I don't even see Luka as that much of a negative on I'm not even kidding. I'm really not. He's a big body. He's not as slow or heavy-footed as he used to be, again, with the in-shape stuff or whatever. And you hear this all the time, is like a lot of defensive effectiveness, unfortunately, boils down to effort and competitive stamina. And honestly, man, again, if you tune into the games, watch Luka Doncic play defense, and you will actually be shocked. The guy is actually good when he wants to be. And that sounds a little bit similar to a guy we've all heard of, maybe somewhere in Minnesota. I can't remember. I don't know. You put some of these guys in good systems, and then you get them to try on defense because they're not the only ones trying, and then holy crap, look at how good they can be. I also love, assuming the health piece, of course, because I'm going to get to Kleba now, but the optionality they have. So I gave you those 5, Luka, Kyrie, Jones Jr., PJ, Gafford. You have Lively coming off the bench. You have Maxi Kleba that they have sort of in their back pocket as their small ball 5, who is a proven playoff defender. He has, of course, had some very serious health concerns, has not really played a ton of games this year. So in addition, he's also just a system guy. Like, you hear them mention this even on the broadcast of a Dallas game. It's like, Kleba goes into the game, they just kind of exhale a little bit. Not to say they're tense or another, but like that dude has just been in and around their scheme and their players and everything. They know tendencies, all of those things, like really well. So I really like how they have that. Jones Jr. is going to get that start in for like Exum, for example, or Josh Green. Josh Green, if you didn't know, he had a really bad ankle turn a few weeks ago now. I heard that he will be coming back before the end of the regular season, so eyes peeled for that. But I say that to say, Josh Green, assuming he's healthy, he's a hyper-athletic guy as well. When you look at the squad, Josh Green going in for Jones Jr., Exum going in for Kyrie, Tim Hardaway coming in for Kyrie or whatever. You have Hardaway spacing, Josh Green, who is super fast and athletic. You even have Hardy in the deep reserves, who's super athletic and fast as well. Gafford is super fast as well. Dude, they have just options on options on options. Like, their thing, and this is exactly what I said in the original video, is similar to Chris Finch in Minnesota, similar to Darvin Ham for the Lakers. The challenge is going to be making sure guys are bought in and locked in and able to effectively integrate and produce alongside of guys maybe they haven't before. Like, it's going to be a reactive thing. I know that sounds like a bad thing, but that's how the playoffs work. It's just one-on-one. All you do is focus on one team. So matchups become extremely vital. So that is why when you have the Exum coming in, who is literally shooting 50-something%, that's a 5 as the first number, from 3, you have Hardaway, who at least in the beginning of the season was having a 6 man of the year type of performance as well. He's had a little bit of a dip, but you know he's going to be ready and willing and is at least going to have the gravity on the other team's defense. When you think about how you're going to stretch and break down defenses, you have the small ball 5 with Kleba to do the 5-out spacing as well. Like I just love to see, man. I really, really do. Again, it comes down to how are the levers going to be pulled by Jason Kidd. So that is a great segue to the Luka MVP case that is going to get all the publicity, and every Oklahoma City Thunder fan is going to be absolutely irate. There are a few very important things that I just want to call out here. The first one is a reminder. MVP, All-NBA, and a host of the other regular season awards are decided by Adam Silver's Illuminati Council, okay? It is not fan-dependent at all. It's not All-Star. All-Star is 50% fans. This is a bunch of journalists, broadcasters, entertainers, close-knit people to the league that have vested interest in the league thriving and surviving. So why do I start off saying that? I think SGA's story is the greatest of any viable candidate at this point. Obviously, Joel Embiid didn't qualify. I think the story of the Thunder being so young and so incredibly dominant this regular season, consistently dominant, might I add, helps SGA's case. Even the style in which SGA has been able to dominate teams as far as dominating the lane and beating guys on almost like four levels is the pass outs, the pull-up shots, all of the footwork and head fakes. Like, obviously Jalen Brunson, and rightfully so, gets a lot of credit for his finesse and SGA's ability to not even just, everybody talks about, oh man, create space, like getting his shoulder into you and like not doing the chicken wing so he doesn't get called on it. So like all of his crazy angles to get, yeah, it's awesome. But look at the head fakes, dude. Look at the way he's able to like manipulate his defenders in an evolving way. And I said this before for my Oklahoma City, whatever, profile breakdown is you hear this from current players when they talk about SGA. It's the mid-range, the turnaround mid-range shot making, the angles and ability to finish around the rim, the up fakes or whatever to get himself to the line, the ability to make the right reads and passing out of certain things, the ability to shoot from the outside as well, from the perimeter. Then there's also the fourth dimension here, which is time. And they very quickly get to he can do all of those things, but he is going to read and register what you tried to stop him on one play and bake that into how he's approaching you on the next play. And then he's just going to give you counter after counter after counter after counter after counter. And I say that to say, back to this is all under the very first point of the Illuminati stuff, is that is a level of entertainment value that I unfortunately just don't think Luka has or Jokic. Jokic is kind of close because he has very flashy passes, right? SGA doesn't look like a dominant one-man wrecking crew, but he is. And yes, he's lanky and he can get all these steals and he can make tough shots like with the best of them, but he is psychologically eviscerating teams from the inside. And I really, really think that it's going to be, well, obviously it's going to be tested in the playoffs, so we're going to really see how potent it is, but that has been the magic for the Thunder this season. Yes, J-Dub has been absolutely sensational. Yes, Chet's first season officially in the league has been sensational. They're playing Case and Wallace, a rookie, like all these guys, they just have clones on clones of guys and guards, and all these guys are just sick. SGA has taken the league by the throat and is dominated in maybe the smoothest fashion we have seen since honestly the actual shooting guard shot making of Kobe Bryant. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, the perimeter shooting is all just sparks and fireworks and crazy nonsense stuff. Great. But if you want to just talk about traditional craft and skill and just psychological warfare of attrition, of countering everything, finishing everything, on top of leading a team that young, on top of being in the unbelievably stacked Western Conference and the unwavering trajectory that this team has had, I personally have a very hard time believing that the Illuminati won't want SGA to have all that, right? I'm giving you the stats, so it's pretty hard there. Sorry, I didn't mean to make this whole MVP thing. Jokic has all the numbers. He always will, and that is going to be the thing. If Jokic doesn't win this year, it's going to be because he's not playing the game the way the deep state of the NBA want him to. Like, you don't even have a Twitter. You don't engage with anything. You show up to work and leave off. And then you have Luka. So I have a couple thoughts on this, and I'm just going to leave them as questions because, again, there are very sophisticated advanced analytics and all of these crazy things and whatever, and numbers are awesome. The MVP, I'm not saying this is what it should be, but I'm going to tell you what, to my understanding, is what it is, okay? It's about who represents a given season the best. It is not who is the best player. It's not even about who played the best. Again, in the regular season, right? It's about who has defined that season for the record books, for the ledger. So given that, I just gave you a really hard sell on SGA again. I would have to think, that's my gut, is what is going to end up happening. But 2 questions for Luka's case here as far as why he should not be more closely considered. Number 1, how much do mid-season trades or roster turnover matter for this narrative-dependent campaign? Meaning, Grant Williams wasn't a great fit on the Dallas Mavericks. That was a culture bug. They got him out of there. They brought in new guys. Luka has been pretty consistently dominant in leading this team, but his overall team strength and synergy was not able to render him at a high enough seed in his own conference for most of the year. And now he is in 5th place as of right now, and there is a very real chance that he could even get higher than that. How much does that roster turnover and overall team strength or team ceiling, if you will, how much does that matter in the storyline? And I say that, obviously, pointing to Denver, Oklahoma City. They've had 0 changes. I mean, Oklahoma City brought in Gordon Hayward for 15 minutes a game. Okay? Bismack Biyombo, I think, has played in 3 games. So, basically meaning those guys have had complete continuity, and there has not been any adjustments on their end. Again, can you hold that against them? No, that's not fair. But if I was a diehard Mavericks fan, I would probably shine a light on that. Like, listen, if you're going to say team record is a very big determinant in who deserves what, we just got 2 starters at the trade deadline. I don't know how fair I would feel about that, considering, especially if they end up dominating to close out the regular season. So that's one. And then similarly is, how much does Jason Kidd finally figuring out the lineup stuff matter as well? I mean, I know that's not unique to Luka. It's a very similar thing to the roster construction, but it's also the lineup stuff. Like, I was just explaining to you guys about all the stuff about the Derrick Jones Jr., like, put the right lineup in. Like, this could be a very potent defensive team, and what the Jason Kidd. And his ass is on the chopping block. They came out of the All-Star break like 5-6. They had terrible games. And I just say that to say, like, I don't know, is Luka supposed to, like, go to Jason Kidd's office and be like, yo, let me coach and make better decisions for our team to be in a better position to win more games? Like, that seems kind of crazy. In Denver and Oklahoma City, I'd have to check this, but I literally don't think there has been a single change at all to their starting lineups or rotations, literally whatsoever, besides Gordon Hayward playing for 15 minutes a game in Oklahoma City. So, and he takes 3 shots a game, maybe. So I just have to float those questions. Again, this is clearly a subjective thing. I'm just asking those questions. How much does roster turnover and basically good coaching when it comes to lineups matter in assessing Luka's candidacy for MVP through the lens of team wins and final regular season seeding? My own 2 cents is I think you have to acknowledge those 2 things, but this happens all the time. So I don't know. I just won't be surprised if Luka doesn't win it. You know, this kind of thing does happen, unfortunately, all the time. But who is going to define a season more? I would have to say SGA probably does. Again, this is a regular season award. For the regular season, I would imagine SGA does. That being said, I would not be surprised if Luka Doncic and the new face Dallas Mavericks beat the Denver Nuggets and get to the finals. It's been said. So I am going to try to burn through this last bit as quick as I can. It is a very long podcast already. So here we go. It is called The Path to Entitlement, ring chasing. Put very succinctly, I have noticed that the older ring chasing teams are just the most entitled ones. Maybe this is obvious to everybody, but I would have thought that there would be more fight naturally in the old world order, keeping the new younger ones under wraps. But teams like the Clippers, the Suns, have just been embarrassingly terrible. They've been embarrassed by objectively worse teams. And I guess I just didn't expect that. For the Clippers, the fact that Russ fractured his hand, it was almost like they lost their best player. They had no fight. Ty Lue called them soft in a post-game interview, and there just wasn't any spark there. And I find the Clippers, when they're rolling, very entertaining. So I tuned in, and it was not only not entertaining, it was depressing. These guys pretty much on autopilot, and look, if you're 35, 30, whatever, and you've been to the postseason as many times as them, and you've seen everything and done it, I get it. But you can't be blown out by the Jazz. Man, these guys can just let go of the rope. And then the Suns, too, I just found it really surprising. And just to stick with the Clippers part, that's Russ's job. Don't get it twisted, of course. He brings an edge, and he is the guy that's going to shake up the energy on the team, probably get in guys' faces, make sure they're on their stuff. But should these guys need to be held on their stuff? Talking about a finals MVP, a regular season MVP, and 8-time All-Star or something. And I just don't know on the Clippers side, at least, if they have the competitive stamina and fire. They got firepower, but you need fire to actuate that. And man, they can really let go of the rope. And then for the Suns, you cough up having a point guard, sure. You have enough guards and guard skills, but you guys are trash at turnovers because nobody's a specialized passer. They're 25th in the league. And in the past 20 games since the All-Star break, they're literally the 6 worst teams in terms of turning the ball over. And you go and you watch Beal and Booker try to play make, and it's kind of frantic. Like, Beal will literally just dribble it frantically, like, out of bounds off the baseline and try to make some crazy play, or, like, Booker will literally fall down trying to juke his own guy, and, like, it doesn't look great. They run 0 plays for Bol. I know that that's a question mark, and talk about the old heads versus the new ones. It is very clear not only the big 3, but Frank Vogel does not trust Bol at all. You know, he has Bol just clearly, he just looks like a dude they just picked up in a van outside the arena because he was like boys with one of the big 3 or something in college, and was like, here you go. Just no idea what's going on. But he can't miss from 3, and he's just overflowing with potential, in my opinion, when you see him out there. The Nurkic falling out at center stuff, like, that's going to get problematic real quick with KD. I mean, let's face it, like, KD doesn't have the physical, I don't think he has the physical stamina to play center for more than stretches of a game, and not even consecutive games, maybe even at that. And you can't have KD fatigued because you need him to score. And that is all outside of the overall talent redundancy problem that I think they have. But I just don't feel great about these ring-chasing teams. You know, the Lakers, they've really stepped it up since the All-Star break, and they've, at least on offense, like, really stepped it up there, but they're getting really big wins without LeBron even playing. You know, I'll never forget that game that the bench guys won against Boston in TD Garden without AD and LeBron. I'm not saying they're better without them, but I just don't know if they're as much better as we thought. And that's not even mentioning the Draymond Green thing on Golden State. And, punching teammates isn't great. Punching teammates and having your front office ship that guy to Azkaban after is really not great. I'm not a Warriors fan, but the fact that I feel sometimes more confident and comfortable with Trace Jackson Davis on the floor instead of Draymond Green, even if that means we're going to have to play more traditional playmaking stuff, like Steph is actually going to have to be a primary playmaker. Chris Paul isn't a player anymore. Like, dude, it's just weird. That was just my last thing. The path to entitlement is ring chasing. And so Ty Lue called the Clippers soft. You hear the term toughness thrown around a lot. To me, it's entitlement. It feels like mostly for the Clippers and Suns. I would say to an extent the Lakers and Golden State as well, but particularly those two teams. It feels like really good players who have a lot of experience are just expecting wins, and they're just expecting things to go their way. Like, they're entitled to it. I have heard, I'm not sure how well the Clippers or Suns could battle back, right, after being down or being schemed against when the other team shakes something up. Like, are they going to be resilient? Are they going to be able to respond? So, totally fair. At least in the regular season, though, to close this out, when, again, every single game matters, I'm more worried about the entitlement factor, frankly. I'm more worried about them expecting the calls or just expecting the energy to just fall upon them and the postseason to just start. I also wanted to mention Boston as well in this. It's a little bit different because, of course, Brad Stevens went out there and plucked Drew Holiday in a multiverse-inducing move, a Thanos-level move. There's no doubt at all Boston has the most talented, balanced, six-man roster in the league. They should win by all accounts. And I am so confident that so many people don't think they will. And this really comes up with the recent Hawks losses in the back-to-backs last week, where the first loss was literally a 30-point choke job. The Hawks came back and they just choked it. So that's a classic Boston. We're timid mentally, psychologically, we're chucking shots. They came back and won the game. Okay, well, we're Boston. That happens. We're super good. No way that's going to happen again. DeJounte Murray, a one-time All-Star, virtually single-handedly dismembered the runaway best team, most dominant team in the league by differential by light years at horrible efficiency. They could not stop him, one, which I think primarily goes to Joe Mazzulla. But two, on the player side, defensively, offensively, not enough killers, which gets back to the entitlement piece. It felt like during that game, the Celtics just expected it to go their way. And even against their game against Milwaukee, they played Milwaukee, I think right before that back-to-back matchup. Between the last couple minutes of the second quarter, halftime, and then the entire third quarter, the Bucks went on an insane run. I don't remember exactly what it was. I just have my notes, but the Bucks were down by an unbelievable amount. It was probably like 30 points, honestly. And in that stretch of time, I think they got it within 10 to start the fourth quarter. Something like that. Jason Tatum. I promise I'm not trying to crucify this guy, but Jason Tatum had 26 points in the first half. Shouldn't sound too unfamiliar at this point. Jaylen Brown had like 26 points in the first half against Denver that they ended up losing. Jason Tatum scores 26 points in the first half of that game. The third quarter is when the Bucks just absolutely thrashed the Celtics, who got comfortable. And you know when the next time Jason Tatum scored a point in that game was? After the end of the first half. It was with 2 minutes and 40-something seconds left in the fourth quarter. And there were free throws. Jason Tatum played a lot of that third quarter. Same rotation as always. He couldn't stop the bleeding. He couldn't take the game by the balls and fend off a desperate, rabid Milwaukee team that, again, was down by tens of points after scoring 26 points in the first half. That, to me, is almost the glass case museum, put it on the wall example of entitlement to me. That is, I did my job. I'm done. I'm good. Take us home. Thank you, guys. Love the team. Balance, egalitarian balance. Jaylen Brown, here's a baton. Derek White, sayonara. It's been a ride. Oh, we might lose this game. And I think Tatum ended up with 31 or something. after shooting 6 free throws. They must have been more, because I remember there were like, he took 3 sets of free throws, so 6 free throws. I think it went like 5 or 6 or something. And then he definitely got another basket. So I think he ended with like 33 points or something. But this is the kind of analysis that matters to me. You took that unbelievable beating by Milwaukee and barely got out of there with a win. And then Atlanta is almost like the final destination of the Celtics. So anyway, if that to me is just a perfect encapsulation of that. And I was, looking through notes and watching all these games and crunching tape or whatever and thinking about this. And especially in light of the Ty Lue soft thing, I was like, there's something that doesn't fit with soft or the toughness part. I think it's more about entitlement. I really do. And when, again, that's what the title is the path to entitlement is ring chasing. When it is inundate the team and the roster with talent, especially in Boston's case and the Clippers' case, when it's as egalitarian as possible, well, then who's the killer? I think you're going to lose some of that edge. Hopefully that's thought-provoking. As always, feel free, share your thoughts with me and Think Shank at all of our socials, at Think Shank, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Email us at thethinkshank at Gmail. My name is Skyler Reinhardt. And once again, guys, thank you all so much. I know March Madness is incredibly entertaining. Playoff NBA basketball has been in full swing for about a week and a half now, and I cannot recommend it enough. Tune in now. All right. Until next time.